I'm Heyzeus, and in this video, I'm going to be ranking CSGO's maps from best to worst, as voted for by the community. Sponsored by Skinport, the easy to use skins marketplace where you can sell your skins for real cash, more about them later, and also supported by VLoot, the awesome site with tons of cool giveaways. Links to both these sites is in the pinned comment. Now, obviously there are a lot of CSGO maps out there, so I decided to limit things to the current active duty map pool, maps that used to be in the active duty map pool, and any Valve made maps that are currently available in competitive matchmaking, and that ended up leaving me with these 12 maps. And I asked the community to vote on which one they liked the most, as well as which one they hated the most, as well as to leave comments explaining why. And after getting about 8,000 votes, I tallied up the results. Basically, the map gains a point for every vote for being the best map, and it loses a point for every vote for being the worst map. So without any further ado, let's get in to the rankings. So at number 12, we have Office. Honestly, I think I'll let this map in just for it to suffer, but I'll tell you what, that score of minus 1,770 really does say something. But why do people hate this map so much? I mean, it's a classic piece of Counter-Strike. Well, it's got a few problems. First of all, hostage rescue never really took off in CSGO. In fact, it was never really that popular in the first place. And CSGO generally isn't designed for CTs to be on the offensive. They're at an economic disadvantage. The weapons aren't as good. And as a result, regardless of whether the map is actually any good, if the game mode itself kinda sucks, the map isn't gonna be much fun to play on. But Office has some other problems too. In particular, it's an old and not very visually appealing map, which doesn't help it earn much love either. And although it does have some fans, it wouldn't be fair of me to say otherwise, I don't think it's a surprise that it came last place. Although, rumour is Valve is working on a remake for this thing, so who knows, maybe there's some hope for the future. So, at second last place on the list is Canals. Again, probably not a big surprise, however, score-wise is doing a lot better than Office, only landing at negative 1,016. Now, it almost felt kind of weird including this map, because honestly, no one seems to take it that seriously. It always baffled me that Valve put all this effort into this map, and it's never really been used for much. And in fairness, maybe it is meant more for casual play, but CSGO isn't really about casual play, so it just seems like a bit of a waste. So this map is set in Venice, as you've probably already noticed, and it's a fairly weird map with its layout, with its canals and overlaying bridges and other connecting paths, and I was interested to see that there are people who like it tactically. Joe Dickens, for example, commented that Canals was always my favourite map. I love the fast rotates, the variety of possible T-strats, and is one of the best maps to play for map control on. But there were also definitely a lot of people just straight up dismissing the map as bad without much elaboration. Honestly, I think this map does suffer quite a bit from not getting enough attention. If people don't play a CSGO map a lot, they don't like it. But that does not necessarily make the map good either, and honestly, I'm not surprised to see Canals in second spot. So, at number 10, we have Ancient. Now, I was reluctant to include this map in here because it's so new, but it met the criteria, so I felt I had to add it. And unsurprisingly, it hasn't done great. Literally only 8 people voted it as the best map, although it didn't get that many downvotes either. The net score was only minus 562, and I don't have much else to say about this map, and neither did the people who left comments really. It's just so new. I guess going off experience, I do find that it's hard to spot enemies sometimes on the map, but maybe that's a problem with me and not with Ancient, and it really remains to be seen whether this map catches on. But honestly, a map that isn't played much isn't much fun to play on, and I think for now, Ancient is in the right place. So, at number 9, we have an absolute classic of a CSGO map, but people really don't seem to like this one too much. Negative 276, that is not popular. Now, I haven't played on Train tons, but I can't say I've ever disliked it that much either. Train is a very old map, but the old version was remade in 2014 and slotted into the competitive map pool the following year. is always been fairly CT-sided. During 2020, the CTs won 54% of all rounds played on the map in professional matches, but it has become slightly more T-sided over the years. It's a very good map for post plants in particular, which does help if you're on the T side and you've planted on A. Now, I noticed that a lot of people left comments criticizing the map did have a very common criticism: the map's complexity. Zenferin, for example, said, "I don't like Train. The timings are horrible at A site, nearly unplayable with lower rank since nobody knows how to Molotov smoke A, main or run pop dog without dying. Must do to take control." Another person, Sibo SVK, complained about the number of angles to check, and while I agree it's definitely a complex map and probably not great for new players, I think there are also some people that really dig the complexity of the map. Aduram Shedji says, for example, "Train is my favourite map. It has great variety and is more or less balanced in my opinion. Great tactics, great altitude engagements." And I do kind of agree with that assessment, but I think the votes overall make it clear that I'm in the minority on this one. Anyway, at number 8 we have Vertigo. Now, Vertigo is an interesting map. So it's an old 1.6 map, but it wasn't very popular when it was ported to CSGO, and eventually Valve would outright remove it, like yeeted it out of the game. But then, in early 2019, they added a completely redesigned version of the map to the game, and just 3 months later, it was in the active duty map pool, which I think was quite divisive because people seem to either love or hate this map. In fact, for a map that ranked so far down the list, I think there were more positive comments left about it than any other map in the survey, and often the reasons given for loving and hating it were completely incompatible with each other. So Tyler Bryant, for example, said that Vertigo, in my opinion, has too many bad well-made angles and gives the CTs too much power, while as Not Rowers commented that Vertigo is just so fun, especially if you push mid on the T side. So many opportunities to sneak behind enemy lines. So I don't think those two things can really be true at the same time. And honestly, there were so many comments praising its tactical depth that I'm really left thinking the map's problem is it was just pushed onto people so suddenly and players are only gradually getting used to it. And if anything else, I think it is a really cool setting for a CSGO map, not to mention, sometimes pretty entertaining when pros play on it.
Short with 1 M4 kill, but the bomb is down, and it should be a 6th round here as Blamer for land.
Oh no!
Oh no!
He's laughing, it's all good, we're all having fun.
Took the ticket right out of that round.
But I think I'll leave the final words to Don Hasey, who said the following to me: "Vertigo is the balance. It's the yin to Mirage's yang, and single-handedly made sure that we're currently not in a nuclear war between Russia and the USA. It's the highest form of perfection." Well, with an ally like that, I'm sure Vertigo is only going to climb the ranks in the future. So, with minus 108, Cobble is the last map to go negative, and it's kind of an interesting map to consider because what Cobblestone are we judging? Despite a rocky introduction in 2014, it quickly became established as a very popular competitive map, particularly among pros, but the problem was, it was so popular, it kind of got a bit stale. Its design gave the teams a lot of map control, which meant they spent a lot of time just sitting around setting up their execute. So in April 2018, Valve removed the map from the active duty map pool, RIP Souvenir Dragon Laws, and a few months later, they brought out a redesigned version of the map, the current version we have today. Now, this remake went down in the community like a lead balloon, so much so that Valve ultimately removed the map from competitive altogether. That's right, you can't play comps in matchmaking on this thing anymore, it was that unpopular. Now, many people lamented what happened to it in the comments, and it does strike me as an example of a remake gone seriously wrong, but one thing that did stand out, there were only a few people who could really explain why they hated the new version. For most people, they couldn't actually tell me, they just knew they hated it. Well, either way, I've definitely got fond memories of this map. It really produced some epic moments.
2 more shells in this Mag 7. Grenade to follow. Forrest still alive. And oh, you're kidding me. Get right. It's now Semphis alone. 1 on 4. NIP Absolute resurrection. From the ashes they rise, and Xemphis gets the kill. Freiburg ends it 16-14.
But despite such a great legacy, I think it's really come to be defined by a tragic remake, which is why 7th spot on the list suits it well. So, in 6th spot, with a score of 59 points, we have Dust 2. Now, Dust 2 is the classic Counter-Strike map. It's really old, it's barely changed over the years despite being overhauled by Valve as recently as 2017, and you might be surprised to see it so far down the list. But honestly, its spot kinda makes sense to me, because the thing that makes this map great also happens to be its biggest weakness. To put it simply, Dust 2 is a simple map. Everyone knows that layout, there's only so many angles of attack, and it doesn't require complex executes or team coordination. Utility usage is really simple, and the wide open spaces of the map really favour aim duels. Famously, it's a bit of an upset map at the pro level, but famously, it's also the map that new players like to play on because of how simple it is, and as a result, the map has just been played to death, and a lot of people are kind of sick of it. And this is really the vibe I got from the comments people left. People praised its simplicity, but also complained about just how much people play it. I thought this comment from The Republic actually summarised it really well. While I hate Dust 2, it's by far the best map. It plays well at any skill level, countless smokes, phenomenal rotations, good long range, good short range, corners that need to be checked but not every corner, balanced on both sides, simple. Its major flaw is for me that I played too much of it for my first 1k hours. Now, I think it says something that someone can simultaneously think this map is amazing, but hate the thing. And I remember when I first started playing CSGO, it felt like 80% of comp matches were on this bloody thing. Now, thankfully, it seems like we've diversified since then, but Dust 2 still serves a very important role, and I think it more than deserves its 6th position. So, at number 5, we have Cache. Now, Cache is a bit of a one-of-a-kind map on this list because it's not maintained by Valve, it's maintained by a guy called FPOM, making it essentially the only community-made CSGO map to ever be in the active duty map pool, which is quite an accomplishment. So, Cache is set in Chernobyl, and it's a fairly balanced map that has a lot of options tactically. You can always just rush things if you're silver, but it's also got options for complex utility executes and mid-play as well as relatively quick rotations. Overall, I think it's a very good map, but the number of votes it got did seem fairly low to me. I really got the impression that this map has faded from people's minds a bit after it got removed from active duty in 2019. A lot of people still left comments though about how they love the gameplay on it, and I barely saw anything negative. However, I do have a theory about why some people might not necessarily like this map too much, because Cache is a map that seems to lead to a lot of blowouts, where one team completely shuts the other team down, and that ain't fun if you're playing matchmaking. Still, I think Cache is an amazing map though, and definitely deserves its 5th spot. At number 4, we have Nuke. Now, Nuke is another classic CSGO map, and it's played a big role in global offensive since the game's release. However, by 2015, it was starting to get a bit stale. Basically, there was only one strat people liked to use, and that was Rush outside. And it worked, but it wasn't great gameplay. So Valve removed the map and made it into what we have today. And at first, people hated it.
The new edition of Nuke, which came out in April, I think it was on April 22nd of this year, is a topic of discussion at the moment, and I actually think I can sum it up like this. I think this new version of Nuke has been a waste of time in pretty much all respects.
Wait, did I just play an old Thorin clip? What is this? The Score Esports? But anyway, the point is people did not like this map when it was first re-released, and it's interesting to see that over the years with a bit of tender love and care from Valve, this thing has really ascended to greatness, at least according to my poll, anyway. And when I looked at the comments to see why the masses are so fond of this thing, there was actually a very consistent theme. People seem to like Nuke because it's different. That's literally the word they kept on using. And make no mistake, Nuke is definitely different. Its vertical layout really changes things up, and a lot of people seem to feel it really rewarded skill. And given how many veteran players there are in CSGO these days, not to mention my audience which has a ton of OGs in it, I don't think it's a surprise to see that Nuke has clocked up in 4th position. So, Overpass has managed to take out third position with a respectable score of 473. This is a map that was added to the game at the same time as Cobblestone, and it wasn't super popular when it was first added either, and definitely had some bugs.
Olafmeister is still waiting. The patience game coming out. He can spot them coming out of Squeak Door as well. He's here. He sees them down there. Straight headshot. They have no idea. Smith's looking confused and dazed, and there's going to be a follow-up headshot. Olafmeister!
But it's also definitely aged better than Cobble, establishing itself as one of CSGO's premier maps. In fact, its design has seen remarkably little criticism in recent years, aside from those invisible CTs that were a problem during Operation Shattered Web.
Down!
Most people who left comments talked about how flexible the map was. Stevie D's, for example, talked about how it was very dynamic and not bad for a solo queue player, while a video commented that by having long range fights, short range fights and elevation, Overpass has it all. And I really have to agree with this. Overpass's map design facilitates long range and close range encounters, while the bathrooms area allows CTs to take aggressive forward positions, while Connector and the stairs behind CT allow for very dynamic rotates, while the design of both sites, and B in particular, can lead to very competitive retake scenarios. Not to mention, the map is visually very unique. I don't think there is another setting like it in the game, so there's no surprise it's at number 3 on the list. So, at second place, a head and shoulders above all but one other map, is Mirage with 1,448 points. Now, it's not really a surprise to see this thing so far up the list because it's probably the most played CSGO map these days. It dominates on platforms like Faceit, people make jokes like this about Broken Fang Premier, and once you get it to silver, it's also probably the most played map in matchmaking too. So, what's so good about this map? Well, I'm going to suggest a couple of things. First of all, the map layout is fairly similar to Dust 2, which is obviously a very fundamentally strong basis to be working off, but Mirage builds upon that basic design with a lot of extra things that make it far more attractive for experienced players, like easy to learn smoke executes, dynamic opportunities to flank through Sniper's Nest, a wide open angle from A site to B short, and other intricacies that add a lot of depth to the gameplay. But it also seems like the map has one problem. People have played so much of it. It's over 6 years old at this point, and it was clear from a bunch of comments I saw that some people are just sick of it, to the point where some are actually starting to question whether this map might actually be an existential threat to humanity itself. As Don Heyzeus says, Mirage is a direct enemy of the people and limits humankind's progression to a better world. And fun fact, I actually included a question in the poll about which map people most wanted removed from active duty, and although I left it out, I will say that Mirage was the second most voted for map that people wanted taken out of the active duty map pool, so I think there is some serious Mirage fatigue at this point. But the good news is, data mine assets from CSGO's game files actually indicate that a remake is in the works, so this thing's days in the competitive map pool may be numbered at this point. So, taking out first place with 1,513 points is Inferno. Now, when I started this poll, I was sure either Mirage or Inferno would end up winning, and I'm kind of happy to see Inferno taking the number 1 spot because it would have been my pick. I love this map, it's undoubtedly my favourite. And why? Well, I thought this comment from Ryan Fisher summarises it well. Inferno, I feel like, has so many options to play. With the other maps, it's always the same plays getting executed. Inferno lets you spice it up. And that's basically my feeling. Areas of the maps like Apps, Car and Mid allow for the CTs to get aggressive and really push back against the Ts. But at the same time, Inferno's long rotation times allows the Ts to really punish over-rotating CTs, and on top of that, CT is actually quite vulnerable to the Ts pushing into it, allowing them to splinter the defense or even flank B site completely. And on top of that, the map places a lot of value on utility, but it doesn't have to be complicated utility. A lot of the smokes and mollies are actually very simple to do, and once you combine that with options for both long range and short range engagements, I think this map really does have it all. People loved the old Inferno and they loved the new one as soon as it came out. It constantly produces absolute banger pro matches, my favourite being the E-League Boston Grand Final.
He'll re-aggress, down goes Olafmeister, Guardian in the rain remain, Automatic pushing through, it's Guardian versus 2.
As Cloud9 sets the push up, oh, it's happened!
They made it work!
And taking all that into consideration, I don't think there is a more deserving map to take out the number 1 spot. Anyway, that's pretty much it for this video. If you've enjoyed it, please like, comment, and subscribe, massively appreciated. And if you've got suggestions for any other rankings, please leave them in the comments, I'd love to know. And also, a big thank you to Skinport for sponsoring this channel. Skinport, formerly known as SkinBay, it's the same site. All that's changed is the name, is a skins marketplace and cash out site. It's safe, convenient, easy to use. It's got a super competitive sales fee of 5% if you put skinport.com in your username, a really, really low fee if you're looking to sell your skins. If you're looking to buy instead, it's got a ton of great deals with over 100,000 CSGO skins listed, as well as easy to use deposit and withdrawal options. Awesome site, check it out, link is in the description. Anyway, that's it from me. As always, trust the numbers, not your guts. I'm Heyzeus, thanks for watching, see ya.